Hello and welcome to CommsLife. Every week, we take a deep dive into the topics and trends shaping the communications industry and beyond. The aviation industry has been hit hard by the coronavirus pandemic, harder perhaps than any other industry. Airlines are scrapping big, old aircraft for smaller models. Thousands of jobs have been cut, and authorities are suggesting that more than $100 billion of revenue could simply be lost. So how does the aviation industry bounce back? And how do airlines and airports assure their consumers that flying will be safe when we return? We are joined by Alan Peaford, Editor-in-Chief of Arabian Aerospace, the Middle East's leading industry publications on all things aviation. Alan's 40-year career in media and communications has seen him work across the gamut of sectors, from local papers to corporate communications firms to leading industry publications. Alan, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
I neglected to include in your introduction, purely because I thought it wouldn't be healthy for the ego, that you are also an MBE, a member of the Order of the British Empire, for support and communicating awareness for people with learning difficulties. Also hold a European Diploma of Honour for communication in the workplace, and the Aviation Journalist of the Year winner 5 times, and a Lifetime Achievement Award from peers at the Aerospace Media event. How does that feel?
That's done the ego fine, Tom, so I'm really pleased to be here now. Thank you.
Well, good. Flattery will get you everywhere, apparently, in this business. So how is everything in Arabian Aerospace HQ in sunny England?
Well, it's tough at the moment, Tom, as you know. I mean, we read and hear everything that's going on within the aviation industry, but I think that is actually just scraping the surface of what the problem is. And I think everybody's coming out with their different messages that are changing week by week. And I think it just really indicates we have no idea what's really going on and what we could do about it, because actually it's out of our hands.
So you've obviously been speaking about the topic a lot. It's unavoidable. It's the not so invisible elephant in the room. Is there a topic or a theme that keeps cropping up in conversations when you're talking to people? I mean, specifically for us in the Middle East, what are people saying is the biggest challenge in recovering, and what are their thoughts?
Survival was the first point, then restructure. Look at what's coming ahead and start trying to do everything to save the cash that you can, keeping the cash in the business. Restructuring means losing jobs. Losing jobs is a painful thing. And I think it's fair to say where we're going to is nothing like where we came from. So I think once you wipe out the idea of it's all going to be back to what we were doing in December 2019, it's not. And certainly not for quite some time.
You mentioned our 2 things which for communications I think are fascinating. It was about reimagining the future and also job losses. We've seen a lot of brands, big airlines, put into their messaging this reassurance, we're in this together, we'll be here when we return, and they've kind of put their staff front and center. But do you think that has been enough in addressing exactly what's going on?
Last week, I talked to somebody in Kenya who was almost in tears, an airline CEO, because there was about 5,000 tons of fresh vegetables sitting ready to get onto an airplane to come to Europe to meet Europe's vegetable needs. Passenger planes are not flying from Nairobi. Consequently, 40% of the cargo potential which goes on the bellies of aeroplanes isn't flying either. Nobody's really that bothered about that. You know, it seems everywhere else you don't think about it. And yet I've seen this week vegetable prices beginning to climb because fresh vegetables are not coming in. So the challenge of fixing aviation actually fixes everybody else, because once aviation is moving again, industry can move. At the moment, there's cargo shortages because of the lack of passenger bellies available. And so as an airline, the messaging you're making is very, very difficult. It's pretty difficult when you're trying to give reassurance to people that are sitting at home without a job, at the same time saying to governments, we need you to give us some money. If you get the money, do the people at those jobs that are still sitting off say, well, great. pay me then. It's really hard.
What we haven't seen too much of, especially in the Middle East, is chief executives or spokespeople for major airlines, please correct me if I'm wrong here, coming out and giving that kind of public address in a way that's subtle and nuanced enough to speak to governments. I mean, obviously the Middle East is in a different situation because it does have more government support than other airlines. But let's put you in that position. Say you're advising the chief executive or the spokesperson that's going to give an address or a statement publicly. What do you tell him to say that strikes that balance between assuring your consumers, the people that are going to be buying your tickets, and also saying to governments, we need your help here?
In terms of leadership, I was very impressed last week or the week before when Tim Clark and Tony Douglas were both on the same event, talking incredibly frankly and openly. And the messaging that's coming out of Emirates and Etihad, for example, is actually very, very strong internally. They are in touch with people and they are telling them exactly how it is. And the message that I would always have is tell the truth, actually. It's going to come out at some point or another.
I think the important thing there is, as you say, is the change is coming. Whether or not media's response has been vituperative, unnecessarily so, or the messaging has been off key, we are going to enter a new normal. We're going to enter a new world. And to give some perspective of why we need to enter a new world of aviation, I'm just going to run a quote through you from Alexandre de Jerniac, the CEO and Director General of IATA, the International Air Travel Association, who said in March, the industry is burning through cash at a dangerous rate. Some $61 billion could disappear from cash reserves in the second quarter of 2020 alone. Demand is in freefall. Worldwide, it's down 70% compared to last year, and it could get worse. There are no words that can adequately describe how deeply this crisis is impacting aviation. If aviation is not functioning, the economic damage goes well beyond the sector itself. Some 65.5 million jobs are linked to aviation. If the planes don't fly, the viability of many of these jobs disappears, which in large part is what you were saying earlier. And I wonder what you think will be one of the biggest changes or the most significant changes in that direction.
I think the answer to that is it depends on the passenger demand. I think the airlines are accepting the fact that it will be a while before passengers want to fly or can, in fact, maybe afford to fly again. This has knocked everybody back. So I think if you were to see everybody that took vacations or took business trips last year want to do it again this year, it wouldn't take long for the airline industry to respond if they were allowed to. Again, I think the biggest challenge is it depends what's happening in the countries that you might want to go to. For example, if the UK stick on 14 days quarantining, are you going to go there for a 3-day business meeting and then have to be stuck somewhere for 14 days? It's not going to happen. So that will be what stops the airline doing what it should be doing. The other thing we're hearing a lot about, of course, is social distancing. That you've got to be anywhere between 1 metre, 2 metres away, and therefore airlines are in an awful place. You're going to be in a tube and you've got to take out 80% of the seats or something. Well, actually, that's nonsense. Look at the science. Being in an aircraft is probably the safest place you can be. It operates with an air system that filters out all of the problems. It is as safe as an intensive care unit in its air filtration system, far greater than anything you see anywhere else. And the air goes up. And before you ask me, the reason you cough sometimes is because of the dryness of the air. And I think you'll start seeing the airline industry, through the manufacturers, start to talk about the science and what makes it work, why it's actually safe. I think it will reassure the people who want the reassurance, and it will make no difference whatsoever to the people that actually have found a reason to not go to places. So I think the numbers will be down. And I think if we look 2023, 2024, we will be back. It will have gone out of our sort of short-term memories, and the need to get onto a beach at Ras Al Khaimah will come back.
Welcome back to CommsLife. We're still here with Alan Peaford, Editor-in-Chief of Arabian Aerospace, and we're going to move on to our more light-hearted segment. Al, thanks for sticking around. Are you ready for this?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, it's quickly becoming a fan favorite, so no pressure. Okay. Black tie or no tie?
Oh, no tie every time, although I do look good in a black tie, but no tie.
Doesn't surprise me at all. The worst habit you developed since working from home?
Oh, do you know, Tom, I don't think I have. I think I've developed good habits in the sense that you've got to remember, normally I'm traveling a lot and I'm working when I'm home. During this period, I've started baking with the family. I've been chatting to people, mates and things across a lot more than I do normally. And I've been helping the missus with things like the house and gardening and so on. So I've developed good habits.
I will ask the same question to Mrs. Peaford, and I bet I don't get the same response. Okay. Pizza or burger?
Burger.
Earliest childhood memory?
Oh, sad one. My dad was in the Navy during the Second World War and got medals and things. And when I was, I think, probably 3, I marched down the front of the road where I lived in the east of London. When I came back, I didn't have the medals, and we never found them. And I can remember going out looking for them. And it's something I felt guilty about till the day he died. And he wasn't that bothered, but to me, it's still
how many medals?
An early memory of horror. Oh, I don't know, quite a few, but I found out when I was a bit older that you can buy replicas. And I said to him, I can buy some replicas. And he said, I don't want a replica. So, yeah, that's an early memory. That was, horrible. Thanks for bringing that back up.
Sorry I lost your coveted Second World War medals, but I can get you some from the equivalent of eBay in the 1960s. I'm not surprised he didn't want replacements. Okay. Books or music?
Books.
Good answer. The first place you will visit when restrictions are lifted?
Actually, Dubai. I had 2 young grandsons.
Of course.
Desperate to get to see them.
Lovely. And finally, if you could have lived the life of anyone else, dead or alive, who would it be?
Richard Branson. Probably one of the most despised people in Britain at the moment because poor guy's been successful. We talk about him in aviation like he's got a brilliant idea with a fabulous airline, which of course Virgin Atlantic has been a great airline. He doesn't really know very much about aviation at all. He's a brand person and a phenomenal communicator. And I think one of the greatest things I remember about Branson was that he took his cleaner on holiday to Necker Island and the family because he believed everybody that worked for Virgin Atlantic were equal. It didn't matter if they were a pilot or if he had a cleaner. They're people. And he treats people as genuine people. And I think that's great, but he's also got Necker Island and all those billions. So that's if I had a choice, I'd love to be Branson. Also
a nice comfort blanket. Great stuff. Al, thank you so much for your time. Thanks for joining us. It was
Tom,
a pleasure.
thanks for having me.
As always. Thanks for listening to CommsLife. For more episodes, you can download the CommsLife podcast from Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify. Keep up to date with everything from the CommsLife team by following our social media pages on LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. Stay safe and be well.